Hello everyone, welcome back to the course on Health Humanities, Indian and Western Medical Knowledge Traditions. This is lecture number 44 on trans medicine in India. In this lecture, I will talk about the roles and the condition of transgender in India, how they have been treated, how they have been stigmatized, and what are the notions about them. Then I'll move to their health problems and societal concerns. Further, I will talk about societal treatment and stigma, their rights and health concerns, and then I'll move to the idea about trans healthcare and their solutions. So, to begin with, when we think about trans medicine in India, the question comes of who are trans people in India and how they are known. What are the terms, concepts which have been used for trans people in India? And then we find that there are a large number of words and phrases that are popular to describe and represent trans people in India. They are often known as hijras, kinnars, third gender, tritiya prakriti, transgender men and women, and then there are other names and words which have been used to describe them. There are some of the names which are very negative, for example, like Napunsak, and there are certain other names which are in a way glorifying the people who are transgender, and they have been associated in that case with a god. For example, Ardhanarishwar, and then from Ardhanarishwar, the word Ardhanari has come for transgender people, and Ardha means half, Nari means woman. So, in this way, when we think about the words and concepts that describe the trans people in India, there are various names. Some of them are very negative, and some of them are glorifying them. And hence, we have equally very diverse representations of trans people. Some of them which are very stigmatizing, and some of them are full of praises about them. When it comes to the health of trans people, generally, one considers the importance of health and well being for all genders, not only about trans people. It should be like available to everyone in a proper proportion, and one should have all kind of health facilities available to them. However, there are a large number of challenges and opportunities for transgender health. It can be about their problems, their societal treatment, facilities, and solutions. When we think about the health of trans people, then there are certain facilities which are available to them. There are certain methods which are available for their treatment, but all of them are not in a very good condition, and some of them are defining, some of them are morally and ethically providing certain points of view, certain views on trans people, and that is delimiting the scope of medical practices. So when one considers about the solutions, one has to think about a large number of other practices which are available, and and a, a large number of other beliefs which are also limiting and pulling them back. Some of the common health problems which are faced by trans people are like high prevalence of HIV, AIDS, and STDs. This is a like case which have been very common in the Indian context. That some of the trans people who have no medical aids available for them, and they have become a victim of HIV, AIDS, and STDs. So, moreover, it is not the only problem which they face. They also face mental health crisis. It can be depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies, lack of access to regular health care, and many more. There are cases where trans people are stigmatized and suppressed by society that leads to their mental disorder. It leads to some kind of anxiety and suicidal tendencies in them. They do not have proper access to the regular healthcare practices. Rather, they are surviving somehow on different sources. Those who are in the city, those who are residing in the urban areas, they have access to the healthcare practices. But those who are in the rural, remote areas, they have less. Further, their hormonal imbalances and lack of gender affirming treatments are also a concern, because in most of the cities and most of the places, the hormonal balance treatments are not provided. The hormonal therapies are not provided, and they do not provide any gender affirming treatments. Rather, they are in a way generalizing, moralizing, as well as normative health practices that look upon the transgender people from the perspective of heteronormative modes of thinking about people. Hence, when we think about hormonal therapies and gender affirming care, we find that it is not available everywhere, depending upon the localities, depending upon the areas where they belong. If they are from urban areas, so from the uh, well educated families, they can get access. But those who are from poor families, who are from rural areas, they have less access. Further, when we think about the health problems faced by transgender people, we find that they face everyday violence and abuse from the society, which affects their health. Their pain is only just physical, but it is also disturbing their mind. So they become vulnerable as well as prone to mental health concerns. When we think about the condition of trans people, Justice K.S. Radhakrishnan declares transgender people as third gender in the Indian law in 2014, and he talks about the condition. It can be the social and political condition, cultural condition, as well as the health condition of trans people. It talks about like how they are marginalized, how they suffer, and everything leads to their mental health. uh, Justice K.S. Radhakrishnan says, seldom our society realizes or cares to realize the trauma, agony, and pain which the members of transgender community undergo. It reveals that how our society is not concerned about the trauma, agony, and pain of transgender people, and not appreciate the innate feelings of the members of the transgender community, especially of those whose mind and body disown their biological sex. Our society often ridicules and abuses the transgender community, and in public places like railway stations, bus stands, schools, workplaces, malls, theaters, hospitals, they are sidelined and treated as untouchable, forgetting the fact that the moral failure lies in the society's unwillingness to contain or embrace different gender identities and expressions, a mindset which we have to change. It talks about all kind of problems which transgender people face. It can be in terms of their transports, it can be the public spaces like workplace, theaters, malls, hospitals. It can be about their day-to-day existence and how they are marginalized, how they are segregated, and then as a result, how it affects their body and mind. It also talks about that transgender people are the one that their gender differs from the sex assigned to them at their birth, and they face several kind of problems which leads to their mental disturbance. And it also talks about how hospitals and healthcare facilities are not fully supportive of transgender people. When we think about how transgender people have been considered and how they have been uh, taken and how they have been given or how they have been part of the society. We find that transgender people have been often neglected by the society, whether this is like Mughal era or colonial period. In the colonial period, there were large past in 1864 and 1871 which criminalized the transgender people, that they cannot have a physical relation with the same sex, or that they cannot marry with any person, and if they are part of any such activity, they were imprisoned, they were punished, which were making the life of transgender people very difficult. Transgender people also faced discrimination in the employment, education, and healthcare practices, healthcare systems. They, they were also rejected in the society, they were marginalized in the family as well as in the society. So, when we think about transgender people, so they were not given any respect in the family, in the community, in the society. Rather, they were marginalized and rejected. There were a number of stereotypes and misconceptions about transgender people, which were demeaning them. When we look at their roles in the media, whether this is like films or maybe social media, we find that they have been assigned comic roles, which is only meant to entertain other people. They were not taken seriously. Rather, certain stereotypical notions were made about them, some misconceptions were made about them, which was not only affecting their self-esteem but also causing chronic stress and mental health disturbances. They always and often faced routine violence and harassment. So, in this way, we find that the people who belong to the trans community, they faced not only social stigma, but they also faced structural discrimination in terms of employment, education, and healthcare facilities. They faced social harassment. They were marginalized at various levels. When we look at some of the representation of trans people in the Indian context, we find one of the earliest example in Mahabharata, where we see the role of Shikhandi, and he gets stopped to participate in the war in the beginning because he is half woman, and being half woman, he cannot participate in war, he cannot do certain things. So this way we find that the trans women have less access in the social roles, and also they have less access in the medical care system. The care for their issues, health issues, which trans people follow, one of them is a kind of belief in worshipping goddess and gods and goddesses. So we find that trans people worship Bahuchara Mata for the sake of having a child. So Bahuchara Mata actually acts as a healing, as a medical healing, which can provide them not just son but also some kind of mental peace. When we look at the ancient Indian medical traditions, Narad Smriti or Sushruta Samhita, or we can also think about the some other books, for example, Kama Sutra, which calls that the trans people in the Indian context are having Tritiya Prakriti, which is also equal to third gender. This is like a third nature which have been associated. There is one nature which is for male, one for female, and this is third nature, Tritiya Prakriti, which is a combination of both male and female in one body. So when we think about the ancient medical traditions like Narad Smriti, Sushruta Samhita and Charak Samhita, we find that they prohibit marriage for the trans people. They are not allowed for marriage. When we think about some of the facilities and support systems which are available to them, particularly the legal system, the legal laws which were passed in favor of them, then one of the most famous law was passed in 2019. This is called the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019. This act not only gave them the rights but also talked about their healthcare concerns. Let us briefly go about this act. The Transgender Persons Act 2019 protects the rights and welfare of transgender individuals. This act talks about the transgender persons are someone whose gender identity does not align with the sex they were assigned at birth. So by birth they may be male and female, but with the passage of time the act says that they will not identify with their assigned gender roles. Further, this act prohibits discrimination against transgender people in various aspects of life. It could be education, employment, healthcare, and access to public facilities. What we witnessed earlier, that the trans people are prohibited, they are discriminated against their employment, their opportunities of employment, education, healthcare access, and other public facilities access. So this law prohibits them against any kind of discrimination. Further, this act recognizes their identity based upon their self-perceived gender identity. It also asserts that the trans people can get an identity certificate from district magistrates acknowledging that they are having transgender status. So these are some of the changes which are happening in the life and the rights of trans people, which also works in their favor. When we think about the prohibition of discrimination in such areas as education, employment, healthcare, and public spaces, then we find that it has led to the massive growth and improvement in their day-to-day activities, in their education, as well as their health concerns. It also gives them right, this act gives them right to reside in their households without discrimination. For example, in a family, when a person becomes a trans, he is born as a trans person, then he shouldn't be discriminated in the family, even in the community, in the society. The law prohibits all kind of discriminations and allows the person to live there with dignity and with status. So no discrimination is permitted in recruitment, promotion, and other employment related matters. Earlier, the people who were trans, they were hardly getting jobs, they were hardly getting recruited. If recruited, they were rarely having promotions. But now the law makes everyone equal, and the educational institutions are obliged to provide inclusive education, sports, and recreational facilities to transgender individuals without discrimination. We also find that in a lot of government schemes, that when they fill the forms, the gender is not only about male and female, rather a column is added for trans people, the other gender, so they put sometimes transgender. Further, we find that this actually act allows the central and the state governments to implement the welfare schemes for the transgender persons, and this welfare scheme also includes the health concerns for trans people. It prohibits them that no one can compel them for begging, and no one can deny them to access public spaces, because forcing them to begging and prohibiting them from public spaces is a punishable offense under the Act of the Transgender People's Right, and it can invite the penalties as well as imprisonments. The Section 18 of this Act outlines penalties for harming or endangering the life, safety, health, and well-being of transgender people. It could be physical, sexual, verbal, emotional, and economic abuses. Hence, the trans people have been given all kind of rights, and these rights have led to the improvement of their health. Further, when we think about National Health Mission programs, we find that trans people have been also part of the National Health Mission program. It considers that all citizens are equal, including transgender individuals. And under this scheme, Ayushman Bharat and Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana are also applicable to the trans people. The National Health Mission incorporates the trans individuals into its broader healthcare initiatives. It provides them quality healthcare, including free health insurance under Ayushman Bharat. So this is a new initiative where the trans people who were not having access to the medical care because of the lack of money, the Ayushman Bharat has given them the medical facilities which they can access free of cost. And this access is like this coverage is 5 lakh per year. When we look at the national portal for transgender persons, we find that these descriptions have been given there, that what are the health facilities which are available for the trans people. And it also even the Ayushman Bharat can also be used under gender affirmative surgeries, which can be in terms of hormone therapies and other surgeries in terms of the modification of the body. There are specific programs and policies of the government which addresses the unique health needs of transgender persons, including their gender affirming surgeries, and they prioritize their health system and also provides them all kind of opportunities irrespective of their localities, irrespective of the regions in which they belong. The National Health Mission has also worked with various various stakeholders. They have a memorandum of understanding with Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and it ensures that transgender persons receive necessary support and services from the government bodies. So this has also led to the improvement of the health of trans people in India. So we find that the condition of trans people have now better human rights, better healthcare concerns than the American law provides, because American law has tried to criminalize them recently. However, we find that despite having all kind of legal avenues available to them, despite having the laws and medical insurances as well as different medical schemes available to them, there is a large number of gaps in the trans healthcare facilities to the trans people. They face a number of challenges. For example, though they have Ayushman Bharat and National Health Mission policies to support their health system, their health, but we find that there are a lack of trained healthcare providers. The people who treat them, they are not trained in the gender concerns. They are not trained in the gender affirmative care, which actually prohibits them to access medical facilities. They face social and economic barriers because for smaller health concerns, these medical facilities may not support them. These medical facilities are also not available at every medical hospitals. Hence, they have to actually go to travel to a long distance. They have to go in the cities or find out the hospitals who support Ayushman Bharat scheme or National Health Mission scheme, where they can get treatments. Moreover, the trans people have limited mental health support. They are often stigmatized and oppressed in the society. That leads to some kind of mental concerns for trans people. To improve the health of trans people, one has to think about how the health of trans people can be improved. In this regard, one has to think about inclusive healthcare policies and training the healthcare providers, because most of the healthcare providers are not trained to take care of the health of trans people. It also needs establishing specialized clinics for transgender people, because when they go to the normative health facilities, there they get moralized, there they get to know about the discrepancies between the medical practices, because they are sometimes following the normative health practices. Further, we need to make people aware about the trans people, about their health. This creation of awareness will reduce stigmas on the trans people, and one also needs to enhance legal as well as societal acceptance. Unless there is a societal acceptance, the trans people cannot be the members of the mainstream health practices. So we need to bring them in the mainstream health practices. So to conclude, there is a need to recognize transgender people's health as a critical component of public health. So when we think about public health cannot be complete without the health of trans people. Further, there is a need for collective effort to ensure dignity, health, and inclusion of trans people in the medical practices, in the medical health care, in the uh, in the society, as well as in the hospital chains, where they can get insurances for their treatment, where they can get all kind of facilities like any other human beings. In this way, the trans medicine in India calls for an action for policymakers, healthcare providers, and society. It calls for an action so that their health can be improved and they can live a life of dignity and inclusion.